Hello, I'm Paul Hefner, the CEO of Finance Pals, and today I'm going to be talking about bookkeeping services and sort of how the definition is sort of all over the place and describe specifically what we do for bookkeeping services, but also some differences. I kind of think of it like maybe a term like being an entrepreneur or a handyman or something like that. There's some handymen that will just fix your gutters and maybe do some drywall, but then there's some other ones that'll do painting and do electrical things, and there's a big range. And then as you get into some of those more sophisticated things like painting or electrical, there's specific people like electricians or painters that specialize in those things. So it's a little complicated. But anyway, that's how I think of bookkeeping as well. So let's dive into it here. Here's a little bit about my background. Not much to really go through here, but I'm the CEO of Finance Pals, and I'm excited to tell you this info about bookkeeping. So there's basically the very basic bookkeeping services. So this is entering the transactions. So if you have QuickBooks or Xero or Wave or one of those softwares, all of those transactions come from your bank, and you then classify those transactions. You say this Google expense, if it's Google marketing, you say, hey, this is marketing expense. If it's Google like Gmail and things like that, you might call that subscriptions. You classify all those things. Sometimes those transactions don't come over from the bank, and you have to import them or do other things like that to get them in there. And then the very last step is to reconcile the accounts. So this is where the bank statement at the end of the month says you have $10,000, and your QuickBooks or Xero or whatever accounting software also says you have $10,000. If they don't match, then you've probably done something wrong, unless there's a certain reason, like maybe you have some checks that are outstanding or other things like that. But basically, you should still it'll still reconcile it. Then you'll be able to tell what the reason for the difference is. And when I say, this slide in general is for basic bookkeeping services. This is what a lot of bookkeeping firms do and specialize in. They just are very focused on just reconciling the accounts. And for a business owner, it's sort of frustrating, because then you say, well, I have all these other things that need to be done. Can you help with that? And a lot of times they'll say, no, we just want to reconcile the books, or this is sort of what we do. But for us at Finance Pals, we go sort of above and beyond that. So sort of the next level up is getting into accounting functions. So this is, sometimes you'll have AR or accounts receivable accountants. So those are the people that are billing all of your customers. Then you have accounts payable people. Those are the people that are when a vendor or supplier sends you a bill, they put those into accounts payable. And the reason you have both of these things into your software is then you can sort of compare what your money coming in will be, accounts receivable, and what your accounts payable will be, the money going out. And so you can compare those two to start to understand sort of your cash position. You also, especially on the invoicing side, have to enter in the invoicing to get paid. So that's a very important function to have somebody do. Next is payroll. Sometimes this falls under HR at bigger organizations, but a lot of times it falls under accounting as well. There's a lot of taxes. So if your company pays sales taxes or other taxes like that, sometimes those are, monthly, sometimes they're quarterly. But all of that information needs to be calculated and then filed with the appropriate organizations, usually with the state. Fixed assets, so this will include things like depreciation. It can include things like inventory, which is a different type of asset, or just all the other equipment that you're purchasing and things like that, and then the depreciating of those things, which then brings those expenses onto the profit and loss statement. So there's a lot of transactions there. A lot of times it's journal entries, other things like that, to get it all properly accounted for. And then once you have sort of all of these things done, then you can sort of create financial statements that'll show, what your AR and AP balances are, what your profit and loss for the month is. It can also show your cash flow statements and balance sheet, or well, those are the three main ones. And so that sort of rounds out accounting. And then if you move it a step up even beyond that, you start to get into sort of a controller role or full charge bookkeeper role. And so this takes sort of the, all that info before, and then it starts to sort of make strategic decisions with that. So it looks at managing the cash flow. So for instance, you might not run payroll, or you might decide not to pay certain vendors if you know that you don't have that money in the bank. You don't want to, overdraw the account. So that's one type of thing. But then you can even look forward a little more to say, okay, this is what our accounts receivable is for the next month. This is the amount of money we're expecting to come in. These are the bills we have to pay. Are we going to have enough money to run our business? And if not, then you might need to cut some costs somewhere or do other things. Maybe you need to get more financing through loans or other things like that. And then so through all that, you start reviewing the financials with the management teams. That could be the CEO, it could be a board, investors, it could be other things like that. But you want to start to take some of these insights to say, hey, here's our cash flow position, here's what our profit and loss is going to be, and start looking forward to how the company is going to be run, so they can make decisions to spend more, spend less, hire somebody, don't hire somebody. Starting to get into sort of that CFO type role, but not quite to the same level as a CFO. But a lot of companies in sort of that small business world won't have a CFO. They'll have a fractional CFO or nobody at all. So the controller typically, or full charge bookkeeper typically, fulfills that role, so that management can make some good decisions. And then for slightly bigger companies, they manage all those other bookkeepers and accountants, that are doing all the day-to-day details. And so when I think of all of these services, of all of these slides, this is sort of the bookkeeping services that Finance Pals provides, whereas a lot of other smaller bookkeeping firms or people that, if you hire somebody who's just a bookkeeper, through Indeed or whatever else, they're going to maybe just be focused on some of these specific tasks right here, which is great. You might need somebody to do that. But one of the ways that we separate ourselves is we do all these tasks. So anyway, thank you for watching. Here's a picture of my kids and family. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And if you have any questions or want to reach out, we'd love to hear from you. We're doing free phone calls for anybody that will shoot us an email and sign up. So thanks. Have a great day.